Hi everybody, welcome to Sam's Doing Stuff. What am I doing today? Well, I'm running electrical wiring for our pool pump and heater. So what we have here is just your typical Intex pool setup. This is one of those temporary pools and it has an Intex pool pump. But we're going a little beyond what the norm would be. We try to keep our pool as permanent as possible. We winterize it every year and it's just fine. You can leave it up. You don't have to take these pools down. We're also going to wire in this Hayward pool heater. This is way more pool heater than you need for this 4,000-gallon pool, but it's available. It came from my parents and we're going to use it. Now what we did last season is we just ran this extension cord and plugged our pool pump into the extension cord, and that's not exactly the best practice. You really should have a proper outlet to plug your pump in. You know, you're dealing with water. You need GFCI, you know, it needs to be safe and it needs to be done right. So what we have here is a place where a satellite dish ran into the house. So I'm going to use that hole. We're going to just pull this satellite dish out because we don't use the satellite. There is no satellite dish. And we're going to use this existing hole to run our electric. Let's go inside. Very quickly, what I'll be using is some 12-gauge 2-wire, a 20-amp GFCI breaker, some silicone, a metal outdoor rated box to mount my two 20-amp outlets in. I will have a weather-tight or weatherproof or wet-rated outlet cover that'll allow me to keep everything plugged in while in use. And finally, I'm going to use this plug to wire the pool heater because I want to be able to disconnect this when I want to put it away in the winter. All right, we're going to start down here by the breaker box. My house, very fortunately, has this channel that runs all the way down the length of the house in the basement. So I'm going to start at the box, start with my wire, and I'm going to feed it down the length of the house in that channel. All right, and you're going to make sure that this thing doesn't get tangled as I go. Right? All right, this is the satellite cable. It's all disconnected and loose. Got the insulation up out of the way. This is our new electrical wire that's going to go through that same hole. So I'm going to go outside. I'm going to pull this satellite cable through. It should be pretty easy. There it goes. All right, here comes the new wire.
Got it.
All right, here we are outside now, ready to wire this box. So I'm gonna get rid of the rest of this. Just cut it off and bury it. There it is, okay. Piece of conduit with some dirt in it. Might use that someday, who knows. First thing we need is our metal box. All right, I will be using the hole on the back of this. The wire will feed through it like that. And it's going to go right there. So I'm going to use these plugs here, put a little silicone on them, and plug those holes. Whoa! It's coming out the back end. Okay. That's why, you know, old tube of silicone. That will do. Well, since this tube is compromised, I'm just going to use it up because I don't know which end is going to come out. So we're just going to goop a whole bunch of it on the back of this thing around the hole. It's not typically how I do things. A little more neat than this, but hey, whatever. Perfect. All right, I got my outlets all wired up. You electricians out there, please refrain. I'm not a licensed electrician. This is the way I know to do it. I know there's arguments about whether you should use pigtails for everything or not. My dad taught me how to do this, and it's the way he's done it for the past 70 years, and he hasn't burned a house down yet. Those are pretty close. That's gonna be it. Just like that. So here's something that I would have never figured out if it hadn't been for YouTube. So there's this little, what is that, a dongle? I guess we'll call it a dongle. Anyway, you've got a side for 240 and you've got a side for 120. And obviously I wired it for 120. So if it's set for 240, which it was, you have to pull this out and switch it over to the 120. And then under this little panel here, you've got your hot, neutral, and ground. And I had no idea where to connect those. So once again, YouTube. So we'll get this all back together. And now obviously the electricity for this is simply to power the thermostat controls and the igniter. It's not, you know, it doesn't require, you could have this on a 15 amp breaker, it'd be just fine. I have it on 20 amp, but it's run off of gas, natural gas. So I'm gonna have a certified plumber run the gas, and once the gas is hooked up, we'll be in business. And on the other end of the cord, I wired on this right angle plug. That'll plug into the new outlet as soon as we get power to it. That's what's next. Okay, here we are back inside the house. Now we're at the main panel. First thing I'm going to do is shut the power off. Okay, front panel's off. Now, I've said this before in other videos, I'll say it again. I'm not a licensed electrician, but I will give you this bit of advice. Don't touch any of that up there. It's hot, it will kill you. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to find a neutral here, loosen it up. We take our GFCI breaker and the little curly Q wire that comes on it, we're going to stick that in that neutral and tighten it down. We'll take our ground, these out of the way for now. We're going to try and stay neat just like everything else is. Find our next open neutral spot, which is right here. Bend it to 90 and cut it off right there. And tighten it down. Which I've got on the wrong side of the ground. And I'll cut it first and be able to get it out. So
That's gonna get...
Okay, so here's the part of the video that's gonna cause you electricians out there to cringe. I'm a do-it-yourselfer, but I'm also a Gen Xer. We just learn by doing, and yes, I did not read the instructions that came on the breaker, and I just thought, you know, breaker, hot wire goes to the breaker, the neutral and ground get bonded together in the bar, and, you know, just wire it in. Well, on a GFCI breaker, I found out later that the neutral runs through the breaker. That just makes sense. That's how it detects a ground fault. So yeah, like I said, I learned. Now, if you're watching this video, you'll find out that when you wire it the way I did, the wrong way, your tester will still test just fine on your outlet. And then when you go to plug something in it that has any draw whatsoever, it'll trip the breaker. So I was very confused, and eventually I figured it out. But like I said, that's the way I learn, and I'm sorry to you electricians out there that, you know, might be just pulling your hair out or grinding your teeth watching this.
Here, nice and neat. Okay. That's in. Power back on. Turn this on. It did not trip, so that's good. Let's go plug something into it and see if it works.
That works. Plug that in. That's the heater. And we'll plug that in. That's the vacuum. Oh my gosh. Men, sometimes we just don't read instructions, and we really should. After what, an order from Home Depot, then back to Home Depot to exchange, and then one more trip to Home Depot to exchange one that package was open and that was damaged. Now I got a good breaker in there. Everything's wired correctly. Didn't burn the house down. And the honey-do list, check mark. Always gonna get some fun variety when you watch my channel, so you better subscribe, please. Please, 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 subscribe. Oh my goodness. All right, guys, that's enough for this. We will see you next time when I am doing more stuff.